Hi, everyone, and welcome to the general meeting for April of Solidarity Lowell. Welcome, welcome. This meeting is being recorded. Some quick guidelines for our meeting. It is being recorded and will be put up on YouTube as well as played on LTC. We don't have a time slot yet, so it's just sort of random, but you might catch us. By staying in the meeting, you consent to both. And to speak, please use the raise your hand function or type an asterisk into the chat. You can try doing this, but I might not see it, so it's better to do one of those. Our timekeeper is Joe Boyle. Be mindful of time limits. I will be doing stacking. I am Marissa DuPont. Captions are available if you need. And we also ask step up, step back, which means if you are talking a lot, please step back and make space for others. If you are not talking, we would love to hear from you. Please raise your hand and speak. Assume positive intentions. And if your words do cause hurt, say ouch. No, if your words do cause hurt, someone else says ouch if they are hurt by it. And then be accountable. So you would say oops in response. And try to speak slowly, which I'm terrible at doing. Oops. Okay, do our land acknowledgement. Here in Lowell, we stand on the land of the following local nations: the Wabanaki, Dawnland Confederacy, Pennacook, Pentucket, Pawtucket, and Agawam, and that's from nativeland.ca. We also realize that this is sort of, I don't know what the word is, but we're working to be more directly involved in this, so this isn't just like a slide that we do. Solidarity Lowell is a volunteer group of Greater Lowell community members working towards social justice by defending the human rights, dignity, and equality of all against hate and discrimination. We welcome new members. The coordinating committee is your elected team of volunteers running the meetings, organizing events, disseminating relevant news, and sharing calls to action. And our coordinating committee elections are held in April, so we will be having folks speak if they would like to join tonight. Solidarity Lowell is a chapter of Progressive Massachusetts, which is a statewide, member-driven grassroots organization committed to fighting for a vision of shared prosperity, racial and social justice, good government, and environmental sustainability in Massachusetts. You can visit their website to learn more. Okay, so we're going to start off with victories for the month. On April 4th, oh, I got to move my screen here. Oops. Okay. On April 4th, the UN Human Rights Council voted to adopt its first ever resolution denouncing discrimination, violence, and harmful practices that violate the human rights of intersex people. The Merrimack Valley Food Bank had a ribbon cutting celebration at their new expanded home at 1703 Middlesex Street. Ed Markey secured $213 million in congressionally directed spending to support 202 mass community projects, including just 3.6 million-ish for rehabilitation of the commuter/ADA accessway at Gallagher Intermodal Transportation Center. More than 40 anti-trans and anti-LGBTQIA+ policy riders were defeated in the government spending bill. Argentinian President Javier Milei, I think it's Milei's, mega decree of deregulatory reforms was rejected by the Senate on Thursday. These reforms included removing limits on rent and the cost of essential goods, easing labor regulations, and ushering in privatization. And the big one, VW workers in Tennessee voted to unionize, a labor milestone. The Volkswagen plant in Chattanooga is set to become the first unionized auto factory in the South not owned by one of Detroit's big three. Does anyone have any other positive things that they would like to share?
I have one. Okay. So the town of Harvard just passed its MBTA law with the help of the Montezut Regional Planning Commission. That is the first time the MRPC, where I work, has successfully worked with the town to pass its multifamily zoning law.
Nicely done. Anyone else? Oh, John Grossman.
Yeah, good evening, everybody. The family child care providers, represented by or organized into, I should say, SEIU Local 509 recently settled a new collective bargaining agreement. These are people who provide childcare in their own homes, including many who live in Lowell, and provide them to families that get state subsidized childcare. And they got 5.5% pay increase as a minimum, with some getting up to 15%, an additional week of paid time off, which they had been getting very little of, increase to money in their training fund, and at least to start, they don't have any retirement benefits, but they have a plan to create them.
Awesome. Mitchell?
Of course, on Tuesday, the city council voted down the proposal to vacate the desegregation consent decree.
Yes.
A serious win.
Yeah.
Paul?
Yes, Wednesday, there were two rallies in the Merrimack Valley, one in Methuen and one in Haverhill, to express the community's wish to protect those two hospitals that are Stewart run right now. Both mayors turned up for the rally. There were about between 60 and 70 people at each of those events.
Okay, any other victories folks would like to share? Not seeing any.
Marissa?
Yes.
Hi, it's Ozo. I don't know if this has been discussed. I did miss the last meeting, so a big win, not just for myself, but for the city of Lowell. The city council voted unanimously to, the motion was put forth by Councilman Corey Robinson to establish a group headed up by City Manager Tom Golden to get together and see what they can do to get a boxing gym in the city of Lowell, which is much needed. I think it will be a solution to a great deal of our problems. You know, it's just a positive place to be, positive activity to just be engaged in rather than, you know, all the other stuff that's going on. It's been instrumental in my life, and I know it can be, and it is instrumental in the lives of others. So to me, that was a really big win over the last couple of weeks.
Awesome. Okay, any other positive news? Not seeing anyone. Okay, so I did realize that, or Amy told me that I forgot to do our introduction. So let's go back. Where is it? Oh, okay. Anyway, I guess the slide got deleted accidentally. But what it said was, please give your name, your pronouns, and tell us what is your favorite obscure holiday. Paul will like this one especially. All right, let's see. I'm just gonna go in order here. So actually, Paul, you go first.
Yes, Paul Gaudette, St. Patrick's Church, president of Merrimack Valley Project. Labor unions, community groups, and church faith communities working together. He, him, obscure holiday. I guess it would be Sadie Hawkins Day, when women get to propose to men.
Oh, that's a good one.
All right, Ozo.
Ozo, he is I and I is him. Favorite obscure holiday, goodness. It's not as obscure as it once was, but Juneteenth in my book is relatively obscure. So I'll go with that.
Cool. Ron? Ron, you are muted.
Yeah, come back to me. I'm trying to look up the obscure holiday.
Chris.
Okay, yeah, Chris Apperman, she, her, lived downtown. Of course, I had to pick a German holiday. And one that was always fun with kids was St. Martin's Day, which is on November 11, and we're doing like children are walking around with paper lanterns and singing songs and getting candies from the neighbors. That was the most important one. And the whole thing ends in some places with a big bonfire. And it's in memory of some long time ago person, Martin, who cut his red cloak in half to share with a beggar during a snowstorm. And ultimately, he became a bishop.
Mitchell.
Hey, Mitch Paulin, he, him, I live in the Acre. As a guy with an engineering background, I'm still a fan of Pi Day.
Okay. Oh, my order just got screwed up. Who's next? Amy.
Okay. Hi, Amy Baranowski, she, her, live in that weird part that's neither the Acre nor downtown, in the middle of it. Favorite obscure holiday, March 2nd, International Rescue Camp.
There you go.
Victoria.
Hi, Victoria Boys, just a Lowell downtown resident. She, her. Mitchell took Pi Day, so I guess if there's a National Taco Day, I'm taking that one.
Sweet. Ron, back to you.
Whoops, can you hear me?
Yes.
Mhm.
All right. So I wanted to make sure I got this right. It is the Iroquois white dog sacrifice in the center of the midwinter ceremony that happens around Western calendar January 6th.
Okay. You're going to explain the significance of that? Okay, take that as an Joe.
All right, so this one's
I'm
easy
sorry.
for me. My two kids were born on International Talk Like a Pirate Day and Mario Day. International Talk Like a Pirate Day is September 19th, and Mario Day is March 10th. Mario.
Oh, that's what it is. Oh,
That's why it's Mario Day.
Oh, jeez, that's silly.
Lefty.
Hi, Lefty Morrill, the relatively new lead organizer for the Merrimack Valley Project. He, him, il, lui. We did this last week for the MVP board, and I did Tu B'Shavat, which is kind of an Arbor Day for Israel. But I just found out this week that April 21st is Three Stooges Day. So
Nice. Aaron.
Explain.
Hi, I'm Aaron. I'm with Community Teamwork. I also live in the Highlands. My pronouns are he, him. Pi Day gets a lot of credit, but my personal favorite is Approximation Day, which was the best we could get at Pi for a couple thousand years, and that's 22 July. Which you know, that fraction was the closest we could get as a collective to Pi.
Love it. That's awesome. Joe Reddy.
How you doing? Joe Reddy, Chelmsford, he, his, him. I guess I would go with School Nurse Day. My wife's a nurse and somebody that I look up to, so I think that's kind of where I go with obscure holidays.
Nice. Shaw.
Yeah, hi, Shaw, Concord, he, him, within the visual acting area, and now also a progressive math chapter newly formed.
All right.
Hey, thank you. So my favorite, it's interesting. You guys heard of the Lunar New Year, obviously, but actually Lunar New Year's is actually a celebration. It's 15 days long celebration. At the end of the Lunar New Year, it's actually called, let me see if I double check on this, Lantern Festival Day, where people go around with lanterns at night. Is very beautiful, and then they eat these rice balls. Anyway, to mark the end of the celebration. So that's interesting, and I certainly enjoy that. Thanks.
Ryan.
I was going to say Juneteenth like Ozo, but he already took that one. So I'm going to say Bastille Day because it gives me an opportunity to say that some good ideas never go out of style. But also, the joke is it took the French only 4 hours to storm the Bastille, but it took the Americans 100 years just to get a weekend.
Nice. Brent.
Brent Stanfield, they, them, Lowell Highlands. And my favorite obscure holiday is Mole Day, which is celebrated at 6:02 a.m. on October 23rd to celebrate the mole, Avogadro's number, 6.02 times 10 to the 23rd.
There are so many math nerds here tonight. I love it. Okay, Tara.
Hi everyone, I'm Tara in Lower Highland. I'm not sure what to say. I would say International Dog Day. I don't know if that in it, but he, him as well. Thank you.
John Grossman.
John Grossman, he, him, Pawtuckettville. Actually, I don't really celebrate any holidays, so I don't know what that means, but no one yet has mentioned International Workers' Day on May 1st, so May Day.
Of course.
Okay. Mitchell, did I call on you?
Yes, you got me in the first half.
All right, just want to check. Darcy, if you can talk, I know you're at the grocery store.
Darcy in the chat said she's in the car. Darcy Boyer, she, her, with Llama, Bastille Day.
Okay, perfect. Caroline.
Buddy, Caroline Snow, she, her. I am in Centerville, District 7. And my favorite day is International Chocolate Day. It's July 7th. And that's because that's what I had for dinner.
Fabulous. Dan O'Connor. Dan, you are muted. Okay, we'll come back to him. Linda. Linda, you are muted. Okay, I think these are the multitasking people. Nancy.
Hey everyone, Nancy Cone here, she, her, pronouns, Lowell Alliance. And I apologize, by the way, I'm in the car, so I'm half engaged, trying to keep an eye on the road. I would say my favorite obscure holiday, which may or may not be a real holiday, is Festivus for the rest of us. and I don't know. I see that the day before, the day after Christmas, sometime around Christmas. For those who maybe don't celebrate.
It's a real holiday at this point.
Hi, Marissa.
Hi, Linda. Do you want to introduce yourself and tell us your favorite obscure holiday?
Sure. Well, I'll tell you that I love all holidays,
Yeah.
no matter how obscure, whether they're mine or belong to another culture. All holidays, any reason to celebrate is my favorite. My name is Linda Cantor. I live at downtown Lowell, off of the river by River Place. And it's wonderful to see everybody. I just got in, I was in Brookline, and I just got off of the Uber. So excuse me for being not prepared, but it's wonderful to see everybody. Thank you.
Thanks for coming, Linda. Dee. Dee, you are muted.
Dee Halsack, she, her, live in the acre. Favorite holiday, obscure holiday is January 20th in Bolivia, which is, people have a charm called an akeko, and you add to it a symbol of whatever it is you're wishing for that year. So if you want to travel, you might put a suitcase on it. If you want a new house, you might put a house on it. supposed to help you attract the things you're looking for in the future of that year. That's all.
Awesome. Okay, quickly go back through this list and make sure I didn't forget anyone. Okay, if I forgot anyone, let me know, but I think we got everybody. Okay, back to the regular scheduled program. We're now going to talk about our endorsement process. So we are currently trying to organize a meeting with Rodney Elliott. Please let us know if you'd like to attend. Nomination signature collection papers are now open for fall elections, which will be looking for volunteers, so keep an eye out for that. We have clarified our endorsement processes. We'll be posting those on the website at some point. As usual, candidates may attend our meetings and have 2 minutes in one meeting to introduce themselves and their campaign. In 2024, we have decided to endorse in the 18th Middlesex State Representative race, the 1st Senate District, and the Registrar of Deeds. Questionnaires will be sent to candidates soon, and once returned, ballots will be sent to voting members, those who have attended 3 or more meetings in the past year. Those will be sent by email. And if you're interested in helping or have any questions, email contact@solidaritylowell.com. Okay, so now we will have our candidate introductions. We'll ask you to introduce yourself, tell us why you're qualified, and explain your goals for the office. Why don't we start with Tara?
Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for the opportunity to jump on the meeting and do introduction about the campaign and tell a little bit about the campaign. Ooh, I just got spotlighted. That was a surprise. But anyway, so again, my name is Tara Hong. I currently live in the Lower Highland in the 18 Middlesex district. A little bit of myself. I'm originally from Cambodia. I came here in 2013 with my parent and my family, and we came here like many other immigrants. We came here to seek opportunity and a way to start a new life here in this country. We came straight to Lowell. I went to Lowell Public School, UMass Lowell, and graduated from UMass Lowell in 2022 with a major in political science and a minor in criminal justice. During the time of going to school in Lowell, I involved myself through nonprofit by volunteering to pick up trash, deliver food, deliver diaper for people who need it around the community during COVID-19 and so on. And that's when it sparked me to be a part of politics. Involved through those volunteer jobs and working in nonprofit, it's opened my eye to see many different issues that's easy to be fixed, but it's nothing being done. At a young age during that time, I feel like I have a voice. I have the ability to help people to ease a little bit in their way of living in this community. That's why in 2022 I decided to run for state representative for the first time, and with the same platform that we have right now is to improve our constituent service in the 18 Middlesex district, which means that to improve the communication between the state representative and the people to be as smooth as possible, so we can work together to tackle on other important issue in the community. That was my platform in 2022, and since I lost the election in 2022 by 56 votes, nothing still have not been done. We don't see the state representative come out and engage in the community, and then this year, because of that still misrepresented, no improve in communication and many other area, I decided to run again for this position in this year election. And I'm proud to say that so far, with the positive response in the community through our door knocking and engaging in the community, I'm happy that we are in a good momentum in the sense to bring change to our district. When elected, this year to be the next state representative in 18 Middlesex District. I'm planning to tackle on first to improve our constituent service. I plan to offer office hour, active on social media, be engaged in the community, show up, send out update about the voting record, what I'm planning to what's my day-to-day like to work and serving the people in the district. When we're able to engage the people to come out together, I feel like that's when we can mobilize the community to work together and to tackle on fighting and advocate for like education, affordable housing, ending homelessness, and so much more. But be one representative, one elected official will not be able to do it alone. That's why my main platform in this race is first, get people engaged, get people to know what we're doing, be transparency about it. That's how we're going to get things done for the better of everyone across the 18 Middlesex District and across the Commonwealth as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Tara. Joe, ready?
Tough act to follow. Joe Reddy. I'm running for Register of Deeds here in the Middlesex North, which is 10 communities. Essentially, the Register of Deeds is responsible for being the administrator of all land records, basically recording, maintaining, and providing public access. It's something I've been immensely interested in over my career. Even starting back as a young man, I've interfaced with the registry for years, recording documents at registries all throughout the state. And I worked at Harvard Law School. I ran their entire career services office and ultimately started my brokerage here locally. And I ran that for the past 13 years, managing many employees and, I think running a very successful operation, which I recently sold to be able to make this run. This is something that I've been looking to do for a long time. I had met with Richard Howe back in 2018 and told him of my interest in being the registrar someday. And, at that time, he told me he would have about one more term left in him. So, here's really the opportunity, and I'm looking to step up. One of the things that's very important to me and one of my big platform pieces is really helping bringing consumer protection to the general public. I think what we have in place now is not adequate. We have very antiquated systems, and I'm all about transparency and providing public access, but I'm also about making sure that people aren't necessarily victimized by that level of public access. So I will, if you talk to me at length, I'll go into how I'd like to improve our consumer notification system to really be a great tool for people that have property. I also think the registry is a great historical database. Think of it like a public library, but for land records. And ultimately, that database is also good for people outside of just, home ownership, people that may be renting property. It's good for them to be able to look up and look to see who they may be giving deposit checks to. So I think it's good for all sorts of different groups, depending on how they need to use the resource. I want to bring this up because as I've gone through this campaign trail, I've been asked by various different groups, how I can bring, because I'm running as a Democrat, how I can really bring, impacts for, say, climate change or whether it be diversity or other issues into the office. And so, I've always been kind of a deep thinker. And so I've come back and really thought about, how I can make impacts to the office. And, there's only a certain amount of that you can really do internally. And so one of the things that I'm going to do as part of my campaign, because I've always been really kind of a proactive person within the political realm, and I never thought I'd really be the front person. I wasn't really that interested in running. I just like helping people run. But I'm actually going to be rolling out what I call the Joe Reddy Good Deeds Pledge, which is that I'm going to be donating up to 500 hours of my time towards social justice programs through social action. So my own personal time will be dedicated. Solidarity Lowell and your mission fits a lot of the criteria of what I like to do. And so really the one way I think I can progress democratic values, and I think just societal values that should be out there, is to really, give my time above and beyond just the registry, and really be a role model for those that serve in public office, regardless of whether this is just an administrative position. I know that in some respects it's, somewhat nonpartisan, but I do think that the values that is Solidarity Lowell and the values that I would be trying to portray through this, Good Deeds Pledge are very similar in nature. So that is really the, the crux of my whole campaign, and hopefully I can be a great leader for those in the community. And I'm actually energized by Tara Hong and looking at how he gets out there and his energy in the community. And so a lot of that is what has inspired it. So that is who I am, and hopefully that.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you.
Okay, we just wanted to talk about Emergency Housing Coalition, since we hadn't officially mentioned it at our general meeting. We have joined with Llama and the Merrimack Valley Project to continue the work of advocating for the humane treatment of our unhoused neighbors and for affordable housing. We are currently arranging a meeting with Representative Howard to discuss these issues, and once it's scheduled, we'll include it in the RRT email. But if you're interested in being involved, please let us know. And the next meeting of the coalition is May 5th at 2 p.m., tentatively at Christ Church United in Lowell at 1 Bartlett Street. Okay, so notes from the rapid response team. This is a big one. Write to your legislators in support of food benefits for legal immigrants. I gotta move this again. Okay. The Cabral Garcia Amendment number 247 protects basic food benefits for legally present immigrants. These are immigrants who are in the country legally but do not qualify for federal food assistance. The Department of Transitional Assistance has provided state SNAP benefits to 4,146 Massachusetts immigrant-headed households since the program began in February. The program is ending in less than 2 weeks unless additional funding is secured now. That would mean that more than 10,000 legally present adults and kids will lose SNAP benefits according to MLRI's projections. The original bills were co-sponsored by Senator Ed Kennedy in the Senate and Rep. Howard in the House. Please thank them. Please write to Reps. Rodney Elliott and Ratty Mom to ask them to co-sponsor the amendment as well. There is a script in this week's RRT email, aka our newsletter, that you can use in a call or email. And please include any stories of how this will impact people that you know. And if you want to help with the weekly RRT newsletter or have an item to include, please email rrt@solidaritylowell.com. And upcoming events we'd like to highlight: the Progressive Mass Gala fundraiser tonight, where we are honoring Rep. Howard, is after this meeting at 7 o'clock, right after. We're hoping to end on time because of that. It is virtual, it's on Zoom, tickets are $35. If that is too steep for you, maybe email me, just saying. But please stay on, you'll have to switch Zooms, switch accounts, but please stay on your computer for that. We'd appreciate it. Next up, Cite with Love, Transition is Certain, Justice is Not. This is a webinar hosted by the Mass Environmental Justice Legislative Table, Monday, April 29th from 5 to 6:30 p.m. on Zoom. Free Her Mass Town Hall, join as they share their vision for decarceration and reimagining communities on the way to abolition. That is Monday, April 29th from 6 to 7 p.m. on Zoom. The Common Start Coalition Lobby Day, urge our reps to pass comprehensive childcare legislation in the House and by funding early education and care. That is Tuesday, April 30th at noon at the State House Cafe, 4th floor, 24 Beacon Street. And please save the date for Progressive Mass Lobby Day, which is Thursday, May 16th, 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. at the State House. Additional events you can find in the RRT, and you can always visit us at solidaritylowell.com. Okay, Ryan, demonstrate, dine, and discuss.
We are going to do the bi-monthly Demonstrate, Dine, and Discuss event on Friday, May 10th at 6 p.m. Please meet us in front of the Ladd and Whitney Memorial, which is across from City Hall. we are going to be meeting again in demand of affordable housing solutions and more homeless shelters. If you want to plan and make signs, contact Ryan at solidaritylowell.com. We are going to meet after the meeting, I believe, at Warp and Weft. This hasn't been approved by the committee yet, but that's my suggestion. I will confirm that ASAP. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Ryan. Okay, Mill City messaging, Amy.
So yeah, we started back up with our postcard writing socials. The next one is going to be Thursday, May 9th at 6 p.m. We've moved to Lala Books now, which is right on Market Street, 189 Market Street in Lowell, and we're hope to keep this up going the second Thursday of each month going forward. So please join your fellow progressives and we'll write postcards in support of progressive causes. Lala is cool. They don't sell food or drinks, but they encourage us to bring them. So, and bring them from home, or, you know, we're almost a Coffee and Cotton Fruit Awakening, or any of the many great shops in the area. And yeah, please join us.
Lefty, you have a question? You're muted.
No question, just have a couple of events when there's an opportunity.
Oh, we'll do that when we get to group updates. Oh, right, which is now. So Allied group updates is when we allow, we encourage any important information and upcoming events from other groups that you are involved in. Lefty, why don't you start?
Sure. So we have our Delegates Assembly coming up, and since Solidarity Lowell is a member organization, some of you are officers, so you already are attending, but we would like 2 people to be coming as delegates. The Delegates Assembly for Merrimack Valley Project will be May 18th. That's a Saturday, starting at 10 a.m. till about noon, and then we're going to have food afterwards. It's at Grace Episcopal Church in Lawrence, and I've put in the chat my contact information, so if anybody wants more information about that, please. But in addition to the officers, like Marissa, who's already an officer, we'd like to have 2 other folks attend. It's our opportunity for people to participate in the organization, make decisions about committees and things like that. The second thing is that on June 22nd, Danny, Paul, you don't even know this, but Danny LeBlanc from the Intervalley Project is going to be doing a training in Brattleboro, Vermont on housing issues. Danny is known statewide as one of the leading advocates for housing issues. So there's going to be a housing training. We'll be carpooling it from Lowell to Brattleboro, Vermont. That's also a Saturday on June 22nd. So if you want to get in touch with me about either of those events, I've put my email and phone number in the chat.
Awesome, thanks, Lefty. Shaw, you're next.
Hi, yeah, I want to invite everyone to attend an activist social. It'll be at Sunday, May 19th, 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. at the beautiful Narrow Park. If you haven't been there before, it's a beautiful place. We have a really nice pavilion for that. Food and drinks, including alcohol, will be served. Even though we call it family friendly as well, because kids don't drink, but they do have face painting and other activities. So I highly encourage all of you to attend. This is a big, big gig to get together and share information and celebrate and get ready for the big year. Okay, May 19th at Narrow Park in Acton.
Thanks, Shaw. Ron, did I see your hand up? You disappeared.
I accidentally clicked on something. Sorry.
Okay, no worries. I just wanted to double check. John Grossman.
Hi. 2 updates. One from the labor side, a reminder that presently the strike of Boston University graduate student workers is into their 2nd month. And they're still out on strike. So if you know anybody with any connections to BU, please urge them to urge BU to settle with the graduate student workers. They're trying to make a living wage, as many of them work and produce a lot of the teaching and research that the university does. And secondly, from the climate justice side, an event occurred last week at Hanscom Field, the airport, where the Hanscom Field people are trying to expand the airport in order to allow more private jets to use it. And if there's anything that will significantly increase greenhouse gas emissions in Massachusetts, it's more private jets. Private jets emit a tremendous amount of greenhouse gas, much more than you might think. So it's just, there's no good reason to use more of them. There's no good reason to use them at all. Nobody needs a private jet. And last week, 20 people got arrested trying to stop this from happening. And there was 40 or 50 other people out there supporting them. 350 Mass was involved with that. And if you're interested in getting involved in that campaign, I'll put the link to their website, the Stop Private Jets Coalition, in the chat. Thank you.
Oops, sorry, I was muted. Thanks, John. Brent, you're next.
Oh, so I just wanted to let y'all know that over the last month or two, a new group in the area has started to form called Merrimack Valley Democratic Socialists. So it's kind of like a new local branch that we're trying to restart up. And so, it's got a lot of young, fresh faces, including myself. And we're just a group that's like really looking to help out and looking to align with like-minded groups however possible. And so meetings are looking to be every other Sunday. So feel free to attend. Also, we'd be happy to share out all the events that Solidarity Lowell has and figure out what, aligning with each other and working together would look like.
Thanks, Brent. Caroline?
Hi all. So 2 quick events. Actually they're both May 19th. It seems to be a pretty popular day. At my congregation in Chelmsford, it's 2 Westford Street. Thrive is going to come and have a presentation, and they're going to just go over what their amazing organization does, and there will be returning citizens there as well, so they will be able to speak to why our prison systems need to be changed and how our social services need to support returning citizens, otherwise known as formerly incarcerated folks. And after that, at 3:45, tentatively at CCU in Lowell, GLELA, which is the Greater Lowell Interfaith Leadership Alliance, will have its spring gathering with a focus on connections and how we connect to each other. And there'll be a lot of storytelling and a lot of different presentations of faith and lots of good stories and possibly food as well. So those are both March 19th. Thank you.
Thanks, Caroline. Paul? Paul, you're muted.
Sorry, thank you. The Greater Merrimack Valley Central Labor Council is having its legislative breakfast at Greater Lawrence Technical High School, 57 River Road. It's in Lawrence or Methuen. But the Attorney General is due to speak, and several legislators, the new president of the AFL-CIO Massachusetts, will also speak. It's a gathering of labor leaders, but people are welcome. 8 o'clock in the morning for breakfast, and probably won't end until 10:30 or 11, but you can always run out if you have to. Monday, 8 o'clock, May 13th.
Thanks, Paul. Dan O'Connor?
Not sure if you can hear me. I'm having trouble with my video and my sound.
We can hear you.
Okay, just to let you know, upcoming events and news, the Hunger Homeless Commission meeting is this Wednesday, May 1st at noon. It's going to be via Zoom. It's going to be a state budget focused agenda. The speakers are going to be Pat Baker from Mass Law Reform, Kelly Turley from Mass Coalition for the Homeless, Sam Salem from Mahasa, and Nancy Cohen from the Lowell Alliance. One other thing, Project Bread, Walk for Hunger on May 5th is a local edition that's being run by the Dwelling House of Hope. That's going to be on May 5th. And just as an aside, the Medicaid waiver 115 was approved for $190 million to support family homeless shelter system.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, any other updates from other groups? Looking through, I'm not seeing anything. Okay. So we'll start with the coordinating committee elections. This is basically the same slide as last month, but I'll just go over it quickly. We have 10 total seats. 3 members are in the middle of their term, which means there are 7 available spots. It is a 2-year term, and responsibilities include 2 additional meetings a month, daily review, and input on our Discord server. And you can see all the details at solidaritylowell.com. The floor is now open for nominations. You can nominate yourself or someone else, but the person must agree that they want to join or can be convinced. They can also be submitted to contact@solidaritylowell.com if you think of someone like later this evening. Today we'll start with candidate introductions. And after that, ballots will be emailed to our voting members who have attended 3 or more meetings in the past 12 months, probably later tonight or tomorrow. Okay, so candidates can have 2 minutes each. Please introduce yourself and explain why you are running. List any qualifications you have that you think would assist the group. Are there any other groups you're involved with? And share anything else you think might be pertinent. So we'll start with our incumbents. Joe Boyle.
On mute, Joe.
I think he's off. I think his phone did something.
No, hello everybody.
Oh, there you are. Phew.
Yes. Hi everybody, Joseph Boyle, he, him. I have been on the Solidarity Lowell Coordinating Committee since I think 2018. And we have done some great things in that time. And we're always looking for people, and we need all hands on deck. And I'm happy to put my name forward for another term.
Awesome. Chris Offerman.
Hi all, Chris Offerman. Yeah, I've also been with Solidarity Lowell from the very beginning, back to that rally way back when in front of City Hall. And shortly thereafter, after I moved into Lowell, I joined was drafted into the coordinating committee, really is what happened. A number of areas of interest in the beginning. It was mostly interest in immigrant right related questions, being that I of course have a background as an immigrant myself, so I felt qualified to speak to that topic and still do. And then over the last couple of years, I've been involved in a number of campaigns, some candidates, some ballot questions like the Yes on 4, where we canvassed in literally 100-degree temperature outside. Having a lot of fun with that one. Thank you, John Grossman, who scheduled us during a very hot day in the middle of the day. And I'm involved with a number of groups. I sort of like connecting like-minded groups to each other. That's one of my strengths that I would like to continue doing. So yeah, that's really all. So I'm running for another term.
Awesome. Thanks, Chris. All right. Who else wants to join us? Anyone? I'm looking for hands. I know it sounds like a lot of work, but it's really not. Okay. Well, if you change your minds, feel free to email us. Preferably this evening, because we'll be sending out ballots. Okay, on to our featured speaker, Erin Ginsburg from the Fair Housing Program at CTI. The Fair Housing Program at Community Teamwork, Inc. promotes fair housing throughout 70 cities and towns in Middlesex and Essex counties. Their comprehensive approach includes raising awareness and understanding about housing discrimination through trainings, outreach, and assistance. Anyone involved in housing is eligible for assistance, including tenants, homebuyers, landlords, owners, property managers, and anyone else providing housing-related services. All assistance is provided at no cost. The program also receives and tracks tenant and homebuyer complaints of housing discrimination while offering information and resources, technical assistance, help resolving the issues, and referrals to legal service for enforcement. And we'll turn it over to Erin. Thank you very much.
All right, thanks for having me, everybody. This seems like a very nice group. Can you do a screen share for me? It's my first time joining one of these meetings, but it looks like a great group. All right, let me pull my screen up and we'll get going here. All right, does this look good for everyone? All right, so just for starters, I came to Community Teamwork 2 years ago to start the Fair Housing Program here. Before that, my background was in civil rights for people with disabilities, mostly under the ADA and some impact litigation around community integration, improving the state services for people with serious mental illness and developmental disabilities so they can remain in the community. There was really a lot of overlap when I came to CTI because a lot of the people reporting housing discrimination these days are doing it because they're being discriminated against on the basis of disability. Let me see how much time I got. I got about half an hour with you guys. Well, I like questions, so if you have questions, just throw your hand up or put it in the chat. I have tunnel vision, so Marissa will help me know when we get to it. But usually I just jump right in and start talking about rights. But when Marissa talked with me about talking tonight, she said, "Can you really talk about all of the different programs that CTI does that touch housing?" So I want to take a few minutes to do that, and then if we have some time left over, we can move more into my wheelhouse, talking about rights and how exercising your rights will help with those important housing stability tasks that we all have at any part of a rental or owning relationship with your property or the city or whoever you owe money to. Community Teamwork is a community action program, and for anybody that's not familiar with this, it is one of the great pieces of legislation that funded community action programs coming out of sort of the heart of the civil rights movement and with this sort of powerful war on poverty language. And really what the legislation said was, we're going to fund local community folks to do local policy to help their constituents towards self-sufficiency. It was this very locally driven anti-poverty programming. So our mission is, to be that catalyst for social change, to reduce poverty, promote equality, and really create that sort of housing and education and employment opportunities that everybody's entitled to. And I'm only talking about housing. We do a lot of other stuff. Tonight, I'm talking about the housing part. But when we look at what our process is as a community action organization, and we take it, I think, probably a little bit more seriously than some of the other CAPs around, because we have a really in-depth planning process. Every 3 years, we do a community needs assessment. We use that for our strategic planning and then annual reviews. And when we're in the world of housing for the last 2 cycles, so for the last 6 years or so, the top need for individuals and recognized as a community need has been affordable housing. And that is not just sort of our top needs in these 2 broad categories, but for every way we break down the residents in our constituent body, our sort of greater Lowell area, whether you're, under 35, under 55, older, whatever those number breakdowns are, it's coming in across as the top for each of them. So we set 3 main housing priority goals, which was to increase affordable housing units for seniors and for individuals, to narrow the equity gap, the racial equity gap in homeownership, and to advocate for anti-racist fair housing. And these are all activities that have sort of been core to CTI's mission for a very long time. They're getting a little bit of like a boost or a little extra attention maybe now that, you know, we funded the fair housing program, and now we're putting even more of like a singular face as an access point for some of these activities, although it really goes throughout all of the programming that is community teamwork. When I think about the different housing services at CTI, it really runs for all levels of where folks are in housing that might need assistance. It hits the unhoused population, which is the most housing unstable group, folks that are in housing but having trouble maintaining their housing or can't afford their housing, and even for homeowners, whether it is a loan to modify your house so you can age in place, or fuel assistance to help fill out your costs a little bit so you can make those mortgage payments or the property tax payments or the other payments that you need. So we really try and hit a whole bunch of different levels, and we do it through various different departments. I can talk about some of these more specifically. The one that I don't really talk about that might be worth highlighting for folks is our youth services program. I've only been at CTI for a couple years, but my understanding is this is a program that is really has grown rapidly and matured recently into a really critical part of our local services. And they include housing services. They include helping folks get subsidized housing. They help people going out. Our program, I think, goes up to like 24 or 26-year-olds that are at risk of homelessness. It helps folks like doing their first apartment applications. It helps with, you know, some of that transitioning. It helps with building up the skills that you need to have an apartment and what you need to do for tracking it and budgeting and getting jobs. I mean, it really is a sort of wraparound program for some of our folks at that sort of early stage that could go in either direction. And it's been a great program. Our fair housing program has supported them on a number of occasions now as their client group, their young folks, are running into housing problems, whether it's a tenant rights issue or a discrimination issue. And then I have separate slides for some of these other for these other groups that we can go through. Our individual shelters, I think Solidarity Lowell has a focus on a good focus on the unhoused population right now and what we can do. So this is a place in Lowell where there's a bunch of different entry points and different places that you can end up at this point if you're in that unhoused group. And this is one of the areas that I didn't know as much about. So I did reach out and talk to some of our administrators that implement these programs. And there's some stuff here in case folks don't know, and maybe some new stuff. For our Summer Street place, if anybody's been up to date and hearing about it, it is a new program, permanent supported housing for up to 19 folks right here in Summer Street. You need to come in through our city coordinated entry door. It's a screening assessment that you got to work through, get folks in. That's your eligibility door. And it's wonderful. It's permanent. They provide those housing supports, so it's a low barrier entry. You don't have to have that perfect credit. You don't have to have a perfect background. And it is really there to try and get people housed and supported, and it's permanent. So if it takes you a while to stabilize and move into other programs, that's okay. Campus is another coordinated entry location for people with disabilities that are unhoused, and it's 27 scattered sites. I think some of them are just opening and going to be coming online soon. So I don't know if that number is actually 27 right now or not. And then under development is going to be a women's shelter program. And this folks are really excited about. The money's been awarded, the property's been identified, and we know that a lot of women are unwilling to use the Lowell transitional housing right now. And for known reasons, it's completely understandable. And this is really directed towards addressing that particular need. Otherwise, Dan, do you have a question?
Aaron, when the women's shelter gets operational, how is that going to impact the hotel program?
Yeah, so I'm not administering this program, but I think the end goal is to replace the hotel program with these sites that are owned and operated.
Right.
I think overall those hotel programs have a high cost of administrative because it's more expensive housing than if you can manage and own the property yourself. So I think the end goal is going to end up replacing this individual shelter program, but we're getting into a level of detail that, you know, I'm not positive about, but my understanding is that it's going to replace it. Right now, the individual shelter program has 46 participants in doubled up housing, which is really tough. Doubled up is a tough way to go. Yes, it's better than congregate, but it can still pose some real and serious problems. And I was going to save this one for later, but while we're talking about it, and an issue that's come across our fair housing program desk recently is there's really a service gap here for folks with disabilities. And we're seeing a number of people that are have physical impairments or mental impairments. Does not rise to the level of needing, you know, a nursing facility or institutional or hospitalization level of care, but it is more than what our individual shelter programs, whether it's a hotel or a congregate setting like the Lowell Transitional, are equipped to handle. And I've learned this the hard way by trying to work through these problems. If you need any help with your activities of daily living, that's pretty much what's going to cut you off from eligibility in one of these programs. And I think it's a real state level gap that we have here, and it's really affecting some of our most vulnerable folks when they are losing their housing and preventing them from accessing any type of shelter service. So I would plug that as one of the sort of top issues that I would like to see addressed on sort of a more statewide or systemic level right now. Our family shelters is sort of a separate arm. When CTI does their emergency shelter services, it splits between individuals and families. It's a different door. Oh, I should say with the individual hotel shelter program, that one does not have a coordinated entry point or a statewide entry point. And there are a variety of different ways people most often come into that program, whether it's directly through our individual services door, through our resource center, or through Lowell Transitional. I think those are the three big areas that people get into that program from. Our family shelters are a little bit different. There's a state eligibility determination door there. We're running a couple different programs. We've got the Methuen Hotel Shelter Program, which has over 100 families in it right now. And then we have a little bit more than that locally in scattered site and some congregate settings. One of the nice things about the shelter program is I'm not positive about this, but I think there's a little bit more case management that comes out of it, a little bit more stability services that come out of it, and they might track you quite a bit longer. We can get you into a home-based program. We can get you straight into a subsidy program. We can follow you through home base with stabilization services, or if you move out of this area, a different administering agency can provide those stabilization services and just try and get you a few extra years down the road and stay with you while you're in your home-based planning. I've had some very good experiences working with the family shelter folks, providing some backup supports when they're hitting lease up issues, whether it's a tenant rights issue or a fair housing issue. That this group is working. This group's working pretty hard too. And that is between those two groups, that's where you hit most of CTI's sort of sheltering services for unhoused folks. Other services that we provide are a little bit more auxiliary and touching it, but through like our housing and consumer education door. Our regional administering, CTA is also a regional administering agency. So we administer somewhere in the neighborhood of 4,000 housing subsidies. And I'm not going to go, for folks that aren't super familiar with housing subsidy programs, I make a couple distinctions at the beginning for understanding the difference between subsidized housing and affordable housing. With subsidized housing, you're just paying a percentage of your income. It tops at 30%, and your subsidy provider is going to pay the balance of it. When we talk about affordable housing, you can really define this a few different ways. You could define it for anybody as being housing that doesn't cost more than 30 or 40% of your income. But when we use it as a more technical term, what we're talking about is housing that is administered privately, but that property manager or developer has a grant and a tax credit program where they rent a certain number of their units or all of them below market rate. But the tenant that moves in there, they have to be income qualified, but they pay the full amount. Ron, did you have a question?
Yes. Is there any program or effort to combine all of these things so that we can help people move from one category into another? Because as we know, these things are not isolated problems. When people are at the very lowest parts of the socioeconomic ladder, they have a lot of different issues that make their lives really, really bad. And hopefully we can move them from, housing first as subsidized as they needed, a little bit of subsidy, then to affordable, then to da-da-da-da. Does anybody have that kind of architectural unified goal planning being done?
Yeah, that's a little bit out of what I'm aware of is going on. I mean, a lot of times these programs have like very specific funding streams, and they're not designed to have those funding streams combined
So they're
together.
very siloed. They're very
I think
siloed.
what would be most effective really is if you had more robust social services like social worker services or case manager services.
Yeah, that makes
And
sense.
I've had huge issues getting people from one program to another program, specifically because they're not hooked up with those social services. And you really need to, if you can, you need to get into a door like Department of Mental Health or some sort of elder services. It's just not a universal availability, which is super problematic. And even if you have it, getting the high quality or fidelity is really difficult too. Azo, am I saying your name right?
Yes, close enough. That's fine. Thank you, Aaron, so much. It's really eye-opening to see how how much of a I guess housing portfolio that you guys operate. I had no idea. But I just had one quick question. I don't know if you saw the cover of the Lowell Sun over these last few weeks, but it was sort of an expose about how bad the conditions are here at the shelter. I live right above the shelter, and I've been advocating for change here for quite a while. I mean, things are moving somewhat, I guess, a little bit, but the major issues are not addressed, like security and cleanliness and all these, very basic things. I was just wondering, because you did mention that you represent individuals on tenant rights. I was wondering, like, is there any way that we can further hold SMOC accountable? Because they're just not moving on these things. They're completely unresponsive to any emails, formal complaint sheets, in person, to say, oh yeah, we'll meet with you, and then you never hear a word back from them. So is there any way to hold them directly accountable, I guess, through the legal system, or do you guys work with anything like that? And again, thank you very much.
Yeah. So no, it's a fabulous question. I was saving my sort of pitch on like what our fair housing program does in terms of rights advocacy until I got to that section. But let's talk about it a little bit. The first pass I take is you got to find where your hook is, right? Like what legislation, what law or are you going to be able to hook on to and say, this is what I'm going to point to for you not doing your job right. And when you talk about shelter systems, you need to look for a few different places for where those hooks are. If you walk in through a housing rights door, the way I think about it is you have sort of fair housing rights if you're using your housing or your shelter as housing, in that you have an expectation to return to it, right? So if you are in like our hotel shelter programs, you would have an expectation to return to that room every day. And that is what I would look to trigger your fair housing rights in a situation like that. The Lowell Transitional Living Center, you do not have that expectation to return every day, if I'm correct. And so you have to look for a different hook. And where I would start looking for those hooks is the program requirements for any of the shelter programs, right? Like the state is funding it and they're going to have their rules around it. So if there are cleanliness rules or there's security rules and they're not being followed, you can look for a hook in that way. If you are really physically harmed from one of those things, you might have a different way to look into it. But you're now in an area that I have just not spent a lot of time looking at or researching, because it's a little bit outside of the housing door that I'm in. But you're absolutely right. You know,
Aaron.
Yeah.
Aaron, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I live in the apartments above the shelter, so I'm not in the shelter itself. So I do have an expectation to return. I've been living there for a few years. So
no, I understand.
I mean, do you have services for that like type of individual? Because we do have a lot of issues going on here that are being unaddressed. And I just just to cut to the chase, I don't want to hold you up anymore on your presentation.
Absolutely, we will talk to anybody in a rental situation that is having problems. And I'll hit that a little bit later, but please reach out to our program. I don't want to do like individual stuff on this one, but but it's absolutely what I think you're talking about would be in our area that we'd want to provide some services to.
Thank you very much.
I just want to make sure there's plenty of time for questions. I'm going to close out what I have on the regional, on our subsidy programs. I made that sort of distinction between affordable and subsidized. There are a bunch of different types of subsidies. We can talk more about that later. One of the areas where I would really like to see more happening rights-wise, and this isn't a CTI issue, this is sort of a statewide issue. I would like to see a little bit more case management type supports in a subsidy program. Really, these are like the folks that administer subsidies. It's more of an administrative capacity to make sure that the program is being administered the way it's supposed to, but it doesn't necessarily hit all of the social needs that the person has. And it would be great if we could enhance that programming a little bit, even just for some like higher need clients. The other thing that I see a lot is folks having difficulty exercising their tenant rights or their civil rights in housing because of their subsidy, right? That subsidy is a valuable commodity. It takes years to get off one of the waiting lists and get into a program. And it could be a housing code problem where your housing conditions are so bad that a administering agency says, landlord, we're not paying this subsidy anymore until you fix it, right? But if you have a landlord that's already not fixing the problem and they continue to refuse to fix it, eventually the subsidy administrator is going to go to the tenant and say, look, if you don't move into a unit that we can pay this subsidy on, you're going to be out of program compliance and you might lose your subsidy, right? So it makes it sometimes hard to enforce those housing code violations. If there is a discrimination reason like a unlawful termination and you're fighting it, those things can take a long time, right? If you're being evicted because you got an assistance animal and your landlord is saying no pets and it's going through the eviction process, you might have to move before that case resolves if if your subsidy deadlines are being triggered, right, to maintain program compliance, or if you say you filed a complaint with HUD or with the Massachusetts Commission Against Discrimination, those things can take years. You might not be able to really keep all of your rights and your subsidy. So it's just an extra layer. I would love to be able to like have a hold button we could press for people with subsidies that would maintain their program compliance while they were enforcing their rights. Common Ground is the last program I'm going to talk about before we get to the Housing and Consumer Education Center. This is a affordable housing development program. It's a subsidiary of CTI. It's been around for decades, and their goal, their mission is to preserve and increase the amount of affordable housing locally. We got like 7, maybe 8 projects, I think 7 properties that Common Ground is managing and developing, and their goal is to be a friendly partner with municipalities to develop more affordable housing. Now we get to the Housing and Consumer Education Center, and that's where our fair housing program sits. And this is some of the stuff that we do in our HCEC. It also houses our resource center, which is the front door for community teamwork. If you need services in the Lowell area, you come into CTI, walk-ins are accepted daily during business hours, and someone will meet with you. They'll learn about you, and they'll tell you what services are available to you, what the eligibility criteria is, and how to apply. So that's really a front door for most people when they come over to community teamwork. We administer the RAFT program, which can be used for back rent up to $7,000 in a 12-month period, or for first, last, and security. We have a housing search program that can help you find the housing. Eligibility for this program is you have to have $1,000 a month of income or a subsidy, and you have to be unhoused or really close to it if you have some other sort of exacerbating factor like a disability or domestic violence, or you are elderly and don't do computers and need help with some of that, or can't really go see places easily. We have a special services, which can provide a little extra information resources and program opportunities for people that are participating in a subsidy program and our housing search. We have a sober home program where we can fund folks striving towards sobriety, either through a sober home, and I think they might do some other apartment rentals too. We have our fair housing program, which I'll talk to in a minute, but we also have tenant landlord education and home modification loans. Our fair housing program, so there's 2 arms for our program, 2 main arms for our program that people come to us for and how they meet us. We do trainings about tenant rights. We'll do it for tenants, landlords, social service providers, community helpers. That's really my favorite group when I'm doing trainings for folks that have clients that are having housing problems, because I get so much bang for my training dollar out of these folks, because they take information and they can use it over and over again, and they can call me where they have problems over and over again. We do a few different things. We do stuff just on disability discrimination. We do criminal records. We do basics on fair housing, and we do a lot of tenant rights stuff now. Our program's expanded. We're moving into tenant rights stuff, and we're also moving into developing and furthering fair housing, sort of really heavily promoting, especially locally, local policies and state policies that will increase the housing stock of affordable and accessible housing for seniors under this idea of housing is health. But we also talk affirmatively furthering fair housing generally, and we would really like to see local municipalities take that obligation to promote housing equity seriously, to apply best practices while they're doing it, and to be a place where their residents can come and say, I'm having a fair housing problem. And then we do a lot of direct advocacy, and this is a little bit about the question I was getting earlier. We stop short of providing legal services. So we're going to refer you to Northeast Legal Aid or a housing discrimination testing program or HUD if you need legal representation. But we do a lot of technical assistance before it gets to that point, and we are really good at helping folks work through their issues so they don't have to get there. I mean, really, when I started this position, I was thinking about this program as a rights program, which at the end of the day is what it is. But I'm thinking about it now more as one part of our housing stability services, because we might be talking about rights all day, but ultimately what we're doing is we are helping folks maintain housing stability, whether it is staying in the place that they're currently in or having enough time to transition between housing without becoming unhoused before that. So my program is usually helping the folks that are, you know, like one step ahead of becoming unhoused, or in front of becoming unhoused, or maybe a couple steps in front of it. But we're hitting that really that group that is having a lot of problems in housing. And what I've noticed is it is amazing what people will put up with and become used to as far as bad housing conditions. So a lot of times people don't come to us until they are in the middle of an eviction, right? Because that is the last moment that they can really say, all right, now if I don't do something, like, it's it, I'm out. They'll come with housing code problems. They'll come with discrimination issues. They'll come with illegal eviction issues. And one of the things I say most is like, look, let's take a step back, take a breath. Let's get your options out there. Let's talk about what's available so you can make some good decisions. Because, you know, acting rashly or without that full set of information is how you end up giving up your rights and increasing your instability. So we talk a lot about tenant rights. We talk a lot about how people access the eviction process. We spend a lot of time helping folks ask for accommodation. So if you have a impairment, whether it's physical or mental, and it's keeping you from using your housing equally, you can ask for a change to a policy or procedure or a modification. A great example is, I'll get you in a second, Paul. A great example is like an assistance animal in a building that has no pets, right? That's a pet policy, and you need an exception to that policy. It could be preferential parking, it could be a ramp, anything like that. And we spend a lot of time helping folks ask for those. Paul, you wanna, Paul, then Darcy?
Yes, Aaron, thanks. Great presentation. Is there some way that citizens can be active in terms of maybe the State House and legislation? I know that's not CTI's wheelhouse, but who is pushing for progressive legislation on housing that we could add?
Yeah, there's some great bills. There's a great housing bond bill on the table, or the Affordable Homes Act. If people aren't aware of this one, you know, absolutely read about it. There is some wonderful stuff in there, including eviction ceiling, which I would love to see. I mean, if we get to like my list of policy things, I have some issues with, you know, ways eviction history is being used in screening for subsidized housing. I would like to see that loosened up. But there's some really quality stuff in there. There is ADU component to it for increasing the, you know, by right. So you don't have to ask permission to have an accessory dwelling unit. You can increase lower cost housing stock that way. And there's just a ton of money that is going to go into a bunch of different programs if this bill gets passed. Darcy, I think you were next, and then Ron.
Yep, just a couple of questions. I'll keep it to your specialty, because even though I do have some questions about the shelters and all.
Oh, shoot, I'll do my best.
And I know we're coming to the end of the time. So first, can you remind me how long you've had this program at CTI? I know you probably said it, and I can't.
This program's 2 years old. It
Okay.
came out of our last needs assessment, where we looked around and we said, nobody's reporting housing. There's no housing discrimination in Lowell. And it was because there's nowhere to report it. So
Okay.
that's sort of what started it.
The other question is, because there's been a vacuum in this area for so long, and just because this is always such a big issue, I'm wondering how many staff people you have working on this, because I know that like Northeast Legal Aid is always overwhelmed, and it's great to have the program, but if you're don't have the support that you need to actually be able to respond to all of the inquiries you get. That can be
So
frustrating.
I'm really happy. I'm really happy about the answer I get to give you for this one.
Okay.
When we started 2 years ago, it started with me coming on to sort of build up, set the framework and build up the program. We had one federal grant that could only talk about federal protected class issues. 2 years later, we just closed our second year at the end of March. We have 4 people working on it now. And we're doing the state fair housing rights. So we include source of income, and we're doing a whole bunch of tenant rights stuff.
Okay.
We've started doing fair housing stuff. So it's great. We've got 3 people full-time and 1 person that's doing this part-time plus housing search for managing our housing search program for the other part of it.
Thank you.
Ron, I think you had your hand up, or
yeah, is there anything that any of us who'd like to volunteer or can we help you?
Yeah, well, let's talk about it. Marissa will circulate the slides. My contact information is at the end of it. But I'm always willing to have that discussion. One of the things we're really trying to, increase our community connections on right now is, in this furthering fair housing space. And we see, I know you guys have got 7 o'clock, so I'm going to let you go. But like MBTA backlash is a big area where we would like to see better land use reform policies to make it easier to increase that housing and increase housing equity. But give me a call, shoot me an email, and we can talk about a whole bunch of different stuff. And I know you guys have a meeting started, so I'm going to let you go. I'm happy to come back, or, if you guys want to set something else up, I do this all day for groups. I'm happy to talk about very specific rights stuff and what happens when you guys have fair housing issues, or really just answer any types of questions you have. All right, so I'm going to stop my share. I'm going
Thank
to
you
hand this
so much,
back
Aaron.
over.
That was fantastic.
Yeah, that's amazingly informative. Thank you. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Okay. So just to wrap up, our next meeting is going to be Sunday, May 19th at 5:30, as usual. It'll probably be hybrid unless the COVID numbers spike up again. But if they do, we'll meet via Zoom only. And then if we meet in person, we do ask that you wear a mask. And if you are feeling sick, please attend remotely. You can join us online at our various locations: Facebook group, Facebook page, our website, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and on LTC. Thank you so much for attending, and we will see you next time. Have a great night, everyone.
Marissa is coordinating people sticking around to discuss things, or are we just?
No.